Hello, everybody. This is StarJump Grim. We are doing an audio check here. Test one, test two. This is Grim. VMXEO is going to hang out with me tonight since we're talking about ships. VM, are you there? Can you do me an audio check, please?
This is VMXEO. I believe I am here, and I could, in fact, do you an audio check.
All
Just
right.
let me know when you want me to start talking.
Okay. Everyone sounds we're good. Says VM is slightly lower. That's okay. Might be slightly lower, but VM will just talk directly and clearly, and I think they'll be able to hear you. All right, everybody. We will be back very shortly. Stand by. All right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear us? Chime in if you can hear me. Hopefully so. I've got a bunch of windows open. I want to make sure you can all hear me. Direwolf says yes. Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. I'm here with VMXEO, as you know, one of the fellow creators of StarJump Fleet Viewer. If you haven't tried out StarJump Fleet Viewer, please do. StarJumpFleetViewer.com. I of course am StarJump Grim. This is sort of the unofficial soft start to StarJump's IAE 2953 coverage, if that's what you want to call it. We aren't like a lot of the other content creators, meaning we're not going to be putting out videos every single day, of course. We're just going to be highlighting the stuff we feel is worth talking about. One of the main things we talk about, Logan Plays, thank you for the follow. One of the primary things we talk about, of course, is ships here because of StarJump Fleet Viewer, of course, and we all have an interest in ships. And today there was some ship news, so we're going to get into that. And I thought, you know, who better to have on the show than VMXEO to help talk about ships? VM, how have you been? It's been a while. Tell everyone
It
how you've
has
been
been a
and what
while.
you've been up to.
I have been good. I am still recovering from when was CitizenCon? It's been like almost a month ago, and I'm still sort of trying to absorb everything that happened in those 2 short days.
Yeah, why don't you tell everyone what you did at CitizenCon? And by the way, thank you, Soul Corelrin. Thank you for that follow. Appreciate it.
So if any of you got to go to CitizenCon, you know what an epic CitizenCon it was. In the back, we had not only our JRDF booth, which I have to say we got wiped out. It was amazing to see the community response. Within the first 2 hours, I think most of our full-size kits were gone, and majority of our diorama-size model kits. So that was pretty amazing. But in addition to the small kits we also had our one-to-one Dragonfly, and I got to help out a little bit with that. Kind of the second shooter there. So that was a ton of fun. So much energy from the community. We were surrounded by tons of content creators. A lot of you came by to say hello. And yeah, it was an amazing time. I unfortunately, because of it, I had to watch most of the presentations after CitizenCon because I was nonstop for 2 days. My voice is finally regained. Came back with a little bit of a con flu, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was
That's the thing about when
pretty
you're
epic.
that's the thing when you're involved in that way, when you're actually working the show floor, you don't get to enjoy it the same way everyone else does. So it's you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword, so to speak. So everyone else does. So it's
I don't think I'd have it any
you
other
know,
way, though.
it's
Loved it.
I got some
Yeah,
double
it's a great
audio
time.
coming in. Sorry, stand by. That's on my end. That's on my end. Just making sure all my windows. I got so many windows up right now. So yes, um, obviously for those that don't know, it's been a while since the StarJump crew has all been back together. But to give you a little bit of a heads up, obviously, myself and Ender will be doing some IAE coverage later on in the show after enough things have been announced. Ender's on a work push right now for the next, 7 days or so, which is perfect because by the time he's back, in the computer chair, enough IAE news will have generated that there'll be a lot to talk about, and we'll also be pushing into RSI Day, which, as we'll see in this episode or on the stream, and or if you haven't been out looking at Star Citizen news today, there's definitely some RSI stuff to talk about. So we even had StarJump Starlet jump in our voice chat a little bit before this show and chatted with her. It's been a while, so nice to see her in chat. I see StarJump Ender in chat. Don't worry, buddy. We haven't forgotten about you. We got plenty of IE shows we're gonna do. This one was originally going to be a little bit of a just me getting on and just haphazardly opening up Cinema 4D and running through some models. And then, I was like, it makes sense. VM's been working on some ship stuff too. So it made sense to get him in here and talk about it too. Especially as we're moving into a busy time. And VM, you can probably attest to this. IAE and Invictus and Alien Week, they always make me think of one thing, and that is prepping ships for Fleet Viewer. So it's one of the first things anytime an event is a few days out, we start ruminating about, we start searching the PTU files, and obviously using StarFab and other tools to start to suss out what the updates to Fleet Viewer is going to be. And we've been doing that. Today was pretty. We made a lot of progress just today, actually, on getting some Fleet Viewer work done.
We did. I spent this morning actually fielding questions about why PTU stuff didn't work with StarFab. Um, had to fix a few things.
Yeah,
Friend of ours away, so I had to dive into some of the code and fix it myself, which was fun. And the usual, if anyone hangs out in the modding Discord, knows that there's always a flood of questions, especially around IAE
yeah,
and Fleet Week, because everyone wants to know how do I get to take a look at the new ships.
yeah, exactly. And
So
I think one of our things too with StarJump Fleet Viewer is we aim to have the ships in as soon as possible. It does get we kind of have a little bit of a rule. If you've ever wondered why our stuff gets updated a little bit later sometimes than, like, say our friends over at Starship 42, our stuff's a little later because we generally wait until the ship is on sale. There's a couple reasons for that. One, we try to be respectful to CIG, just in terms of their own announcements and stuff. And but an even bigger part of that equation is StarJump Fleet Viewer is tied into Hangar.link, and Hangar.link works off what is purchasable, what's in your hangar, works off SKUs. So that's another big reason that even though a ship may have linked or sorry leaked, we don't have it in Fleet Viewer right away. We may have it done and sitting there, but we don't have it ingested yet. Unless it's a ship that's already on Fleet Viewer and we're just updating the model, which also happens. So, for example, the C2, the C1, the SRV. I don't think there's another one. Maybe I'm wrong. Those two were just updated on Fleet Viewer. Oh, and the A1. Sorry, the A1, the C1,
the
and the
A1,
SRV.
that's right.
Yeah, they are all using the newest models on Fleet Viewer, and of course, we will be updating stuff like the Storm. The Storm is currently on Fleet Viewer. In the concept model form, we'll be updating that with the is it I would feel weird saying flight ready form, the drive ready model, and all that stuff.
Fight
So
re- fight ready. We'll call it fight ready.
there you go. There you go. All right. So real quick here, I'm just gonna pop us over. Let me see. Let me pull up a few things here. Let's go ahead and kind of get into this. So heads up, we we have IAE coming up. We're very close now, everyone. We're 2 days, 14 hours away. If you haven't already seen the trailer and stuff like that, you can go to robertspaceindustry.com, look at all that. They have a whole IAE page up. You can check out all the information. It's all there. The trailer and all that stuff. I previewed that on the show. Was it earlier this week when they released it? The biggest bit of info from this is probably the calendar, which you see here. Obviously, we start off on the 17th and 18th. That's the end of this week, and there's no big secret here. It's the new Gatac ship, and so we're starting with a full-on alien day. Gatac, Apoa, hopefully I said that right, Asperia, and Banu, right? It's going to be all those ships. You'll be able to rent them, all that good stuff. From there, we're going to move over into Aegis Dynamics. That's when we're going to see our first limited time or limited hull ship waves. Things like, the Javelin, the Idris, all that good stuff. Then we're going to go into Tumbril and Crusader. We'll get the Storm on that day. We will then move into Origin on the 20th, 21st. I don't think we expect anything new from Origin this year. Origin's already pretty heavy on ships. I mean, we have the X1 that'll be coming, and the G12 I know are in production, but beyond those two, Origin's fleet is really filled out. Like, I mean, they have ships at like every category. So I personally don't see CIG moving back around to Origin anytime soon. For those of you looking forward to the 600i rework, I sort of fear that means that the 600i rework could be a ways away. Don't know, especially if they're tackling ships by family now. Would you agree with that, VM? Might be a little
I
while
think
before they get
so.
back.
Well, they might want to sneak in that Origin industrial mining platform.
Oh, there you go. We do
Just
need that.
beg CIG. You definitely need a high luxury mining vehicle.
Yeah, yeah. 21st, 22nd, we're moving into Drake Interplanetary, one of my favorite manufacturers. We're kind of an interesting place with Drake. There's only one ship that's not flight ready with Drake, and that's obviously the Kraken and / Kraken Privateer. Not that there hasn't been some leaks recently regarding some Drake ships, but we won't really go into those because those are like bona fide leaks, so we won't go down that road. And I'm sure they have many more Drake ships planned, especially when you consider the Cutter has been so successful. We do know there's other Cutter variants. I haven't specifically called those new ships because we have known about them for a while. But VM did some cutaways of the Cutter when it first came out. I had a Cutter and actually ended up switching that to the Cutter Scout. I melted the Cutter and got the Scout. Just felt like the better variant to own. Did you end up getting one of those, VM?
I do not own either cutters, actually. They are a really cozy ship. And
Yep.
if I was, I'd probably buy in the main game because they're not that expensive. But
Yeah.
I have not pledged for one.
The Cutter is another one of those ships to me that is just a really good use of space. You can look at some ships and you go, oh man, there's a lot of real estate they weren't able to use. The Cutter is one where they were able to use a ton of real estate in this ship. So, by the way, everyone in chat, we have a great crowd tonight. Thank you all for joining us. It's me and VMXEO of StarJump Fleet Viewer fame. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. See so many awesome people in chat. And again, just a heads up, StarJump will be doing some IAE coverage throughout the event. You'll definitely see StarJump Ender on some episodes with me, probably both on my channel, his channel, later on in the event when some of the news has started to pile up. I would even love to do a Fleet Builders episode during IAE. Ender, let's talk about that soon. So that's Drake Interplanetary. Maybe they'll reveal the next Cutter variant. I don't know if that's the case. Completely speculative, maybe not, but Drake's always a popular day, especially I imagine for ship rentals. 22nd, 23rd, we're going to move into Argo, Consolidated Outlands, Grey Cat, and Kruger. The big one there, obviously, is limited hull ship sales of the Pioneer, and I think we would be fooling ourselves to think the Pioneer will not sell. It's going to sell extremely quick this year after the base building panel. at CitizenCon. What are your thoughts on that VM? Do you see kind of a mad rush for base building capable ships this year?
I'm going to be honest, I watched that base building video. I saw the Pioneer and I saw the Galaxy sitting right before it, and I thought maybe the Galaxy wouldn't be a bad option.
Well,
So, will everyone go straight for the Pioneer, or will some step ladder up using the Galaxy? Both
yeah,
are
you
nice.
really bring up a great point. I think because of the cost difference, the whole limited availability of the Pioneer is going to have to really bring something to the table. Oh, Commander, thank you so much for that follow. Appreciate it. The Pioneer is going to have to really bring something to the table because you're going to be able to build all the way up to large outposts with the Galaxy. The Galaxy's way cheaper and is modular, so it actually is kind of multiple ships in one. So the Pioneer, in my opinion, is going to have to really bring it. I personally hope the Pioneer is what allows us to build orbital outposts. I think that would be a cool differentiator. I don't know where CIG will take that, but they did say that they are looking at the Pioneer and to do more than it's even currently scoped. So we'll see where that goes.
I'm curious to see the next evolution. I would not be surprised if the Pioneer got some upgrades, not just visually, but maybe from capabilities.
Yeah, I could
And
really.
that would make me excited.
Yeah, I personally could really see it going under a bit of a redesign. However, in the Squadron 42, I held the line video again, and give it up to CIG marketing. They know how to put together an edit. Um, in that video, towards the end, the hero ship flies by a big space barge, and I'm completely speculating here. I don't have any inside knowledge of this, but man, that space barge looks awfully like a consolidated outland ship. And the only reason I think that is because some of the panel lines, the Pioneer has these very specific panel lines on one of its sides. They're kind of like these rectangulars that slope into a smaller rectangle. They're really unique little panels. That barge ship had the exact same panels on it, and I noticed it. Again, that's a wild speculative theory, but it makes me wonder if there's more large consolidated outland assets in existence than we know about. That'd be really cool. But
I would love, and I'd probably raid the couch for all the change to pay for it, but a consolidated outland bulk carrier,
yes, yeah.
whether it's a Pioneer or something larger.
I w-
Um,
I
even the even the barges that flew around Orison are kind of cool, and I wish there was a Crusader bulk carrier in that
yeah.
style.
Yeah. I see Consolidated Outland. Well, they're interesting. They're one of the ship manufacturers that really has a lot of holes in its fleet that I could see CIG really exploring. Um, so yeah, and definitely. November 23rd, 24th, we go into Anvil Day. Um, I think that'll be popular. However, we haven't heard any word if they're going to do any sort of additional promotions with like the F8C or maybe we've heard rumblings of a Mark II F7A or whatever. But regardless, there's some opportunities for cool things to happen on Anvil Day. Will they do that? Don't know. They may save some of that promotional type sell stuff for other times. Certainly IAE is already packed, but I know that's when people think of Anvil now, they're thinking of the F8C with that recent promotion. Um, 24th, 25th, we go into Mirai and Misk. We just had a big string of Mirai ships. Obviously, the Fury variants. There was some possible hints, leaks in the CitizenCon video that John Crew and Big Curtis showed of a possible other Mirai variant, a larger ship. So that I don't think we'll get any of those reveals on the 24th or 25th, but still probably a popular day. Um, I have a ship I'm really interested in from Misk, and that is the Expanse. Kind of a smaller single person refinery ship. It's one of the ones I'm interested in. And then the 25th, 26th, we get to the big one, RSI Day. So as everyone knows, generally the first and last day are pretty marquee days for a ship or vehicle. Either going flight ready or to concept. And then obviously we have the RSI minor, the Arastra. Hopefully I said that right. So, but going back to the base building thing, RSI is going to be a really unique day, and I'm personally really excited to see what happens from a ship sale standpoint because it's not just that the Polaris is in development. CIG's already said that it's going to be Polaris, then Galaxy, then Perseus. We now know they have this large minor concept coming, right? So w- things are really happening on the R. Oh, and sorry, the Apollo is in some level of production right now, and so what we have here is a lot happening around RSI. And when ships are even being a glimmer of hope in the production pipeline, I think they sell better. So I predict a big day, the 25th and 26th, for people interested in RSI ships. Would you agree, VM?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Galaxy alone, they're going to sell a ton of Galaxies. Now, what I think would be really interesting, we'll see if CIG takes this opportunity, but I see RSI Day being the perfect day for them to also, besides the minor, also unveil the manufacturing module for the Galaxy and make that available for pledge. It could be a bit early for that. I really feel like they probably could wait until next year to do that. But man, would they make some serious bank? Because again, after that base building thing, that's all I hear about from people is I want a Galaxy, I want a Galaxy, I want a Galaxy, and it's specifically for that module. Um, and you have to wonder if CIG runs off of that excitement from CitizenCon and gets the module out there to pledge for, or did they let some of that excitement around base building cool? However, even that may be, not a completely accurate statement because with base building going into production in quarter 1 or January, whenever they said it was of next year, we're probably going to get base building updates pretty regularly throughout the year. So they may already have a plan to keep that hype moving. Um, but I sure would like to see the module go up for pledge. Um, why don't we jump right into it? Not waste any more time.
Do it.
I did want to. I want to swing over to this real quick. Just one quick thing for those of you wondering, and I know the type's a little small on screen. Don't forget the Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3 hull limited ship sale system that they generally use. There is a thread on Spectrum in the general channel. There is a thread all about IAE. It's all in the top of the post. They have the wave times and on each day which ship will be sell. It's all the normal ones. There's no big surprises here. Hull E, Connie Phoenix, Pioneer, Kraken, 890, Idris P, and Aegis Javelin. And then for those of you wondering, when you buy and if you buy an Idris P, the moment you buy that, the K upgrade kit becomes available to buy. It shows up in the store if that's something you're trying to get and we're wondering where it's at. So just a heads up on that. And yeah, Starlet, I totally agree. I think the Pioneers will go fast. But also, actually, before I move on, I actually think the Idris is going to go fast too, because I know last year it actually took the Idrises a little longer to sell than people were thinking. I think that won't be the case this year because now that John Crew has said those are going flight ready day of with Squadron 42. First off, I think everyone's under the idea that by end of the year next year, Squadron 42 is probably going to release, or if not by then, sometime soon on the horizon. Because of that, there's a lot of people probably already making those Idris plans. Because again, I don't think knowing John Crew, I don't know if he would just open that can of worms about saying, "Hey, the Idris is going to be day one with Squadron," if they weren't heavily planning for that. And the fact that they already know that the Idris is ready for day one, the Javelin and Alien redo ships are going to be post Squadron 42 release because there's a few extra things they need to get. So they're already planning and thinking this out. So I see the Idris being a big seller this year as well. All right, let's get into the first thing. VM, I thought the first thing we would tackle would be the go ahead and bring it up here. The first thing I thought we could tackle would be the Storm. That is the straight to drivable ground vehicle made by Tumbril. This was revealed, was it last year? It hasn't been revealed all that
Been a year?
long. It may not have even been a year. May not even be a year. But everyone knows the Tumbril Storm. I'll render it up here. The Tumbril Storm is a single crew, a single person, sort of light attack tank sort of vehicle. I guess I would call it that. I watched some people playing around with it in the PTU. I haven't been able to play around with it yet. I do own one, but I have not gone to PTU. But I was actually really surprised at how fast the turret fired. By the way, this here is our Fleet Viewer concept model Tumbril Storm. This will be replaced by VMXEO with the flight ready model. But I was actually really amazed at how fast the turret fired. I don't know if you checked out the videos, VM, but it actually fires a really fast volley of shots and then has to do a reload. I don't know how many shots it fires, but it felt like it was 7, 8, 9 shots. So it kind of goes do 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 do, and then it does a reload cycle. Did you get to
That
see
seems to
any
be
of this?
consistent. I haven't watched any of
Okay.
the Storm videos yet, but that seems to be consistent. They wanted to go with a run and gun
Yeah.
or hit and run, I should say. Yeah, run and gun vehicle. So
Hit and
that
run
actually
works too.
sounds like yeah, hit and well, you know, so, some of us can shoot, some of us can just ram,
Well,
whatever your style is.
so, Mud Dog brings up something. By the way, hello, Mud Dog. Hope you're well, buddy. Texas Space Navy. I am working on your thing. I promise. Had some render issues with our cloud-based rendering service, PixelPlow. Send your complaints to pixelplow.com. But I have got it sorted out, so I am back to rendering. But I watched some videos of it today. It's actually a pretty fast vehicle. My only current critique with it, in terms of something that just stood out, and I was like, "Ooh, that looks a little weird," and I think CIG will address it. Is it really looked like the vehicle had no weight to it? It kind of like slid around and bounced around on the surface of planets, or the moon that they were driving on. And I do know the moon had lower gravity, but I almost wonder if CIG plans on adjusting this to feel a little heavier. It did feel kind of lightweight and flimsy. Um, this kind of goes back to something that I've always thought about with the Nova, the Cyclone, pretty much any ground vehicle. I'm actually surprised CIG did not put, like, maybe they're called, I don't know what you would call them, compensator thrusters on the ships that point up that can keep it firmly planted on the ground. Think of a spoiler, but for low grav environments, something that keeps it compressed on the ground so that it keeps traction. That's always something I thought would be really interesting on ground vehicles.
Tracked vehicles in Star Citizen have been a little bit floaty anyway to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
Um, I know they wanted to do some tweaks to vehicles to improve that. I don't know where that is,
Yeah.
where
And
that stands. I know they've talked about that, so
and to be
maybe that's
fair to
coming down the line.
CIG, yeah, and to be fair to CIG, everyone should know this. Tracked vehicles in video games is actually not easy to do. There's been a lot of developers that have written articles about how complicated tracked vehicles can be. Obviously, there's some games that have done it pretty decently, World of Tanks and stuff like that. But there's other games, especially games that I would consider, I guess you call them combined arms games, games that do tanks or treaded or vehicles with treads. However, they also do a lot of other things, so they can't specialize in that one mode of transportation. So I'm thinking of Arma 3 here. Arma 3 also struggled very heavily with tank combat and tanks in general because again, they have so many vehicles and types of vehicles they're developing systems for, that the niche treaded vehicle was something that just didn't get the attention. Now, eventually did, but it took a while. And I expect the same from CIG when it comes to the Nova and the Storm. It's going to take a while. I've actually talked to some developers, not CIG developers specifically on tanks, but I've actually talked to some other developers, and it's not an easy problem to solve. It really isn't. There's some physics things that go haywire and some other problems. Now, the Tumbril Storm, this is kind of what I guess is considered the base variant. It's got this dual energy cannon thing. It fires a volley of shots, then goes through a reload. I'll be really interested in testing to see how hard the vehicle hits, how strong the vehicle is. But we were recently shown that an AA variant exists. And what the AA variant does is it removes the gun, which is this thing right here. It removes the gun and replaces that with an AA mount, which you see here, okay? So the AA mount essentially looks like this, mounted onto the Storm. Nice big blocky thing there. The AA variant looks like it will be able to carry a wide assortment of missiles and stuff like that. I think there was an image that kind of was circulating out and about that showed multiple different types of missiles in there. I think there was like it can either carry 4 bigger missiles or it can carry up to like 8 or 16 smaller ones. It'll be interesting to see if CIG built that flexibility into it. But any thoughts on the AA variant VM or the Storm in general? Is this something you're interested in? Ground vehicle, something you're interested in?
It's not as a player. What did pique my interest, especially with the AA, is there has been an interest in having reasons to explore things on foot
Right.
or on a vehicle over just landing your ship. And I
Hmm.
think, especially with pyro shows, that if you can get in enough defenses in an area and force the player to basically park the ship farther away and walk or taking a vehicle in, that's where your Storm AA is going to come into play. Either you are the player bringing one in to the zone,
Yeah.
or it's an NPC and it's keeping you away. So
Hmm.
I think the opportunities for gameplay for just keeping ships out of an area and forcing you to come in on foot or by vehicle, the more options you have, the better. And I think the AA is actually going to be a really good tool for that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Storm, the whole reason I pledged for it, because I don't usually go for ground vehicles, or while that's not totally true, I do go for ground vehicles sometimes, but they're my LTI token. I usually keep them for a little bit, have fun with them, melt them, always knowing that they'll be melted for something else at some point. As a matter of fact, I have a little bit of rolling credit that I will get small vehicles or ships with, melt it, and it just kind of rinses and repeats. That's how I try out things like the Furies and stuff. However, with the Storm, I was actually interested in keeping it because to me it is a perfect outpost patrol defender. You know what I mean? Um, and the AA variant, again, when I got the base Storm variant, we didn't know about the AA variant. The AA variant is something that I'm probably even more interested in. So I'm curious if CIG um, I guess I'm curious if the AA variant costs a little bit more money, which I have a feeling it might, because I think there could be a lot of people that will upgrade their base variants to the AA variant, possibly. Um, but and I'm obviously we're going to see the 2 packs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's the perfect kind of outpost patrol vehicle. So I could see that being the reason why a lot of people get this. Stand by, everyone. Just looking, got a good crowd tonight. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Um, but yeah, I mean, do we think there's any other variants, or is it just the two? I think it's just the rumblings about the 2 variants, correct?
I haven't heard there being any more.
Yeah, yeah.
CIG likes variants, so you never know in the future. They could come back and do a third.
You never know. I could totally see a variant though that and I don't know if there's any cyclone variants that do this. Chat, maybe you could let us know, but I would love a variant that's more like air to ground missile capable, something that uses trying to think of the right what's the right trying to think of the right ordinance in real life.
Almost
What
like
is
an
it?
artillery style.
Yeah, like artillery style, or something that even fires more like a javelin anti-tank missile. So it's essentially a missile that fires up and then arcs up real high and then just comes straight down. Um, Usually they're carried, I think shoulder fire, Hellfires, I think do that as well. But either way, I think that would be interesting. I could see other variants. I could even see when they showed off the base stuff, one of the things they showed in one of the concept art piece stills for base building was they showed like these shield generators, right? I would love to see, this is kind of crazy, but I would love to see a vehicle that is able to project a shield bubble around an area. Not big, like kind of smaller. And what it could be used for is if you have a vehicle down that needs repaired, or some org mates down that need, critical medical help. This vehicle could drive out to them. It projects a shield barrier, a shield bubble, like the ones we saw on the outposts, and allows, say, another vehicle or something to come in and pull those people out. Or the vehicle can project the shield bubble, and then it's got a couple crew position jump seats on it that people can get in and get them out. I would love to see stuff like that. And funny enough, I could see the Storm playing a role in that really well. It's a hardened vehicle, but it's fast. It kind of has the one weapon lock, hard point. So I could see a trade off, and it wouldn't be for everyone. It would be pretty niche, but I could see the trade off being this losing its weapons essentially and gaining some sort of powerful shield bubble emitter. You know what I mean? And maybe it emits out to nothing crazy. Maybe it's 100 meters. You know what I mean? 100-meter radius or something like that, just enough to protect a group that's in a bad situation. And the shield would be like anything else. You can eventually get through it, disrupt it, and stuff like that. But I don't know. I could see more variants beyond. I more ground vehicle variants beyond just the purely offensive, weapons platforms. I think there's still a
And it
lot of
beco
room there.
and I think as we've seen with other vehicle types, they can easily turn it into a platform. We've
Yeah,
seen all the Cyclone, especially with the Ballista.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Lots of different opportunity there.
yeah, I can give everyone a little bit of a look here because I know some other content creators were posting images of the missile, the AA platform on the Storm, but they were showing it separately. I can kind of show you what it is here. Let me turn on my axis here again. It's essentially this component. I'll lift it out. You can kind of see it here. Um, it kind of goes right over here and then filters down in here to the back. So it's a rather large piece. Killer, thank you for the follow. Appreciate you. So it's kind of a much. When I see this, sometimes I wish that CIG allowed us to get just a Storm base, and then we could customize these armaments, at Cousin Crows or some sort of outfitting thing, our garage or something like that, and they would allow you to
Some
buy
sort of
these.
modularity? I don't know if they've ever talked about that.
I don't think they have, and I'm sure they've thought about it though. And I would love to know what that conversation was like, because I'm sure there's a reason. It might be that just at this scale of ship, maybe it just makes more sense just to sell the entire ship. However, when they build things like this, where it's literally just drops into place, right? Just clunk right down there, and pretty much everything else is the same. I always kind of think, man, is that kind of a missed opportunity to like make a modular combat vehicle? You could put the energy cannon on there, or you can put the AA thing, and then later on they can release smaller little weapons packages for it. Didn't they used to sort of have something like this? What was it? The Bucks, the battlefield upgrade kit. I
Yeah.
know Execute from Info Runners has told me a lot about this before. But I don't think they really sell those anymore. But they sold them with the Vanguard series, if I'm not mistaken. Does anyone remember from chat? Does that sound familiar?
I think that was before my time, and I think they backed away and probably until they could get some more. Maybe modularity is not even the right technology. Yeah, being able to swap stuff out though.
Yeah. We get into that takes us sort of into the controversial thing with all Star Citizen ships to me, which is what should constitute a variant versus modularity, or let's call it a battlefield upgrade kit, because I know they've used that terminology before. And I used to think it was a money reason, right? That it was just maybe more profitable to sell them as variants. That may be the case, and that's not a knock on that. I want CIG to make as much money as possible because I want this game to be realized. So I don't have a problem with that. But I have always struggled a little bit though, just from a buying situation. Like, would they make actually more money by selling base variants with weapon hardpoint switch out. So, for example, another good one is the Talon. This is one that I've constantly voiced quite a few times. Like the Talon is is a ship that I wish would have just been the Talon, but that you could switch out AA hard or missile hard points or weapons hard points. And I get that it's not just a gimbal, a gun that you're switching out. There's some hardware there, but I almost wish that was stuff that you could take it to a Cousin Crows and get switched out, right? Same thing with ships like the Avenger, the different Avenger series. I almost wish you could just buy the Avenger and then you could take it to one of those Cousin Crows or something and get those items switched out. And maybe there is some lead time, maybe it takes 2 hours of cooldown time before your ship has been transitioned into the other variant, or maybe it's longer. But I almost wonder sometimes if that would have even been more profitable for CIG just because you could sell cheaper battlefield upgrade kits at a higher quantity. Obviously this is a DLC argument that's been argued in games for a long time. And I am actually a big proponent of CIG making profit and making money on this game, because even though the game has made a lot of money in its period, 600 million, 700 million spread out over 10 years is actually not a lot of money when you're developing two games and you have large overhead. As someone who's started businesses myself, I have a good friend that works at Bethesda. I can assure you, and I have a good friend that works at Rockstar. I can assure you it's not a lot of money. It seems like a lot of money, but when you're developing two AAA game titles, one being multiplayer, one being single player, you're developing new technology, you're working on an almost completely rebuilt game engine. Trust me, it's not a lot of money. It seems like a lot of money, not a lot of money. I always use this analogy sometimes. So I work in the film television industry, and movies are easy to make compared to games. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. Everyone knows how to go out and shoot a movie, with the exception of being like an Avatar or something, which does have a lot of technical stuff that's difficult. But generally, movies are movies. I've worked on movies that have had budgets of 300 million just through development, marketing, promotional, all the stuff. And it's a movie and it takes 7 years to get done, 8 years. So again, when you're talking about the money and the timeline, it's not that crazy where we're at when you really take it into account. And I want the game to be profitable. I want them to see it to the end, and that means um, you know, maximizing the dollars. So I truly hope that we see a return to things like battlefield upgrade kits and weapon packages for certain platforms. I'm not saying it needs to be for every ship, but the Storm would be a great vehicle for that. Obviously the Ballista could be another one. The Ballista I could see being switched out to a Spartan. I mean, in the base building segment, they showed a Ballista that had some sort of manufacturing trailer attached to it. I don't know if that was a mock-up or if that's a real thing, but at the end of the day, some of these vehicles just scream like modularity to me. But I'm sure there's a reason why CIG went with standalone variants for them. It'd just be interesting to hear the thinking behind that.
I would say this: we've heard rumors about them revisiting the Retaliator.
Hmm.
Retaliator? I think it's
Yep,
Retaliator.
Retaliator. Yep.
Um, and I'd be curious to see what direction they go. Will they give us the promised modularity where we can swap huge portions of the ship out, or is the Retaliator? Are they going to come out with just variants that are just separate SKUs that you have to buy separately?
Right.
So I think that will be kind of telling what direction, if CIG is going to take a new direction, or if they're just going to stick to the current course.
Yeah. Can anyone in chat remind me what was the pledge price of the Storm? The both war bond and credit price. Does anyone in chat remember what that is? Can't remember. 70, was it 70 war bond, 80 for credit? Oh wow, that's cheaper than I thought. Maybe that's why I bought it, because it was it was cheaper than maybe it was the Nova price I was thinking of. Okay, so let's take that for a minute. 70 credit, or 70 war bond, 80 credit. Let's assume the Storm either stays the same price or goes up maybe like $5, because they got to be careful encroaching on the Nova. Maybe it goes up $10. Where do we see the AA variant coming in? I don't think it'll be the same price. I think the AA variant's gonna be a little bit of a premium on top of this. I'm thinking the AA variant will be, personally, I'm putting it at 15 more than this, both War Bond and, or maybe I'm gonna say 10 more. 10 more on War Bond, 10 more on credit. VM, do you got a prediction?
I'm going 5 to 10. I think they
5 to
want to
10?
keep it pretty close and just bank on people wanting to buy both.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I could see us maybe getting a 2-pack for, what do you think? I could see them doing a 2-pack for maybe the 140 mark, something like
Remind
that.
me, what did they do when the Fury came out with both the Fury variants? That was around the same price point, right?
Yeah. No, wasn't the Fury quite a bit lower? I thought the Fury was like $55 or something crazy like that. I forget. But you know what the funny thing with the Fury was is the Fury, they went crazy with the packages. Remember that? They had like the single pack, the 2-pack, the 8-pack, the 7-pack, the 36-pack. So here's what we get with the Storm. We're gonna get the 2-pack for sure, but we're also gonna get some sort of Tumbril pack. I guarantee you. It's going to probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bunch of Tumbril vehicles in it. Maybe all of them. But I could also see them giving us a selection. So like a Nova, both Storm variants, a couple Cyclones, a Ranger, whatever. I can see that being a thing. So I would imagine on Tumbril Day, there's going to be some packages. There's going to be a package that fits your Tumbril needs, if I had to guess. Ender says Fury is 55. So the Fury 2-pack was 100. Bad Mofo says. So what
I
I
buy my
see,
Furies from Costco in bulk.
yeah, it's a good way to buy them. Here's what I'll say. Um, I s- I noticed this with the Fury. I'll be interested to see if they take this same tact with smaller ships going forward, because I think it only really works with smaller ships, smaller vehicles and ships. But I really wonder if we're going to start seeing big varieties of packs, meaning like you can buy 2 storms or 2 storms and a Nova, 4 storms and a Cyclone and a Nova. Like, by doing that, CIG is able to maximize the dollars with this sale and essentially turn it into not just a storm sale, but it's a Tumbril sale and promotion. You know what I mean? And I thought that worked really well with the Fury, primarily because I think they sold not only a lot of Furies when that ship came out, but I think they sold a lot of carry ships too. Like I think they sold some caterpillars. I think they probably sold a few Idrises, some C2s. I have no doubt. Ender says here, what if they did a build your own pack? That's something that's been floated a lot, on some sort of build your own pack where maybe each ship you add takes off a certain percentage and blah 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 blah. The big the big warning there, and I would be curious to see what Starlet says about this. The big warning there is, do you want to buy a pack? Because then you have trouble melting a particular ship in the pack. You got to melt the entire pack. So this happened recently with the Zeus for me. I bought the 3-pack because I love the Zeus variants. I love them. However, I knew in my heart of heart that I wasn't going to keep all the variants. There's going to be 1 or 2 that gets melted. I just wasn't sure which ones yet. I'm pretty positive I'll keep the Clipper variant, but I still wasn't sure. So I actually ended up melting the 3-pack and just getting them individually. I think it was like 10 extra bucks to do that. I got them all individually because I knew I was going to melt some. So what I would love to see is the ability to break a pack. And I don't know what CIG could do there. Matter of fact, I don't think they could do it because I think people would then utilize the pack thing to increase the value of their ships by buying a pack and then breaking it and having them all individually. So I don't think CIG is going to do that, but it would be interesting if there was a way out of that where maybe you couldn't melt a ship from a pack, but you could. Well, I don't know. That's probably a whole other show. Probably a whole other show.
That's why they've got an entire team devoted to marketing.
That's true. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
So
So here it is, everyone. Um, the Storm AA. I don't think any other content people or posts out there have actually showed the AA pod on top of the Storm. I think we're the first ones to do it. So there you go. That's what it looks like. It sits kind of snugly. It's kind of big actually. It covers the entire back end of the Storm. There's no extra room for a little, a little self-defense weapon or anything on the Storm or any smaller cannon. The AA launcher takes up a huge amount of space on the vehicle. So, all right, we're now going to move to the next ship. Okay, and we're going to go to the next ship from RSI, which is called the Arastra. Hopefully, I said that right. I probably did not. And here it is. Let me render this up for a second here. This is a concept model. Obviously, we do not know what the ship totally looks like yet, from a details perspective and livery perspective. A lot of people today have been showing it, in all one color, either clay box sort of render or all black or something like that. The reason I specifically did some color variations here was to show you how the color variations are currently in the hollow model. So in the hollow model, generally they'll have some simplified texture tagging going on to to allow the different parts of the ship to be visible, right? Because if it was all just black, it just sort of looked like a big complicated blob. But the way the hollow model is separated, and you can't see it on my side here, but all these pieces are kind of separate and they have separate tags on them. So you can see here's the front nose forks. We've got the middle section, all that, right? So you can kind of see how this works. Back engines. Um, and when you bring those into Cinema 4D or Blender or anything like that, they have texture tagging on them, but it's highly simplified. And that texture tagging can sometimes be a clue on how the livery is going to look. Not exactly, but it gives you at least some general idea. And I think what we're seeing here is a little bit of how that detailing will look. I think you got this section here that will be one color scheme. I think these big industrial, you know, uh, fork things coming out the front will probably be a different color. It kind of gives you at least a little bit of an idea on the separation of textures here. Now, one of the things I'll point out about RSI, this is the case on the Galaxy. It's the case on the Zeus. For those of you that watched my stream about, what was it, 2 weeks ago, where I went into how I did the Zeus for Fleet Viewer, it was actually I had to take a different approach to the Zeus. With RSI ships, they have a lot of this flat, detailless paneling when you open up the hollow models, and that's because a lot of the detail there, a lot of that panel detail, the rivets, the locking mechanisms, the this and that, are done through decals, texture work, and other stuff. So when you look at the model, they really show up kind of plain, especially the concept models. Um, so that's probably going to be the case here. There's probably a lot more detail in this section of the ship, especially up here in these forward intakes, these big kind of blobs down here. They look very low poly, low detail. I'm sure there's a lot going on there. So I have a feeling this ship is going to require quite a bit of work when we see the actual concept model, or sorry, concept artwork, which is usually what I then have to take and build into these very low resolution hollow models. Um, that being said, big warning put out there in terms of what we're looking at. VM, I guess I wanted to get your initial reaction to the Arastra. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Large scale. I think they classify it as a large mining ship, or sorry, heavy mining ship. Heavy mining ship.
So I'm going to give you my first impression, and this is going to sound mean. But I'm just going to have to put this out here. When
All
I
right.
first saw it, I thought someone cheated and used their Starfield ship.
Yeah. You know what? That's an
It
interesting point. I've seen some Starfield ships that have this overall look.
so it is definitely a departure from the typical RSI wedge shape,
It
and
is.
that I do appreciate. Um, we do recognize some of the RSI signature elements, the nacelles, of course, the RSI
Yep.
bridge.
Yep, the RSI
Um,
rails. Let's swing around to the nacelles here. You
there we
can
go.
see the general, this general engine nacelles are very RSI like. They have these pieces here, these little um, flex little winglet things. Those are on pretty much every RSI ship from the Bengal to the Polaris. Sorry, go ahead, continue, VM.
The front part has actually got me curious more than anything else. The design on it reminds me a lot of what you would see on an Argo ship. That
Yes,
that square rectangular frame.
yeah.
Um,
And did you happen to notice down here that it almost looks like there is another like industrial window area here?
yeah. So I'm curious as this design matures and develop if it's going to keep these elements, if it's going to get refined more.
Mm-hmm.
I do like overall. I actually do like this design. It's a
Yeah,
nice departure from the RSI design language,
yeah.
and I think it's a more mature evolution of the existing work. Because right now, let's be honest, everyone makes the joke about flying Doritos, but we have a lot of flying wedges for RSI ships.
We
So
do.
this is industrial. Let's see if they can push this design into other ships. I would not be upset.
So I think this is a little bit of a reach, but I'm going to bring it up. One thing I thought that was interesting about this ship from a looks perspective. So this is an RSI ship, like you said, but it's an industrial RSI ship, right? So it's using its industrial. It's bringing in a little bit of its industrial design language in. And specifically, what's the other big industrial RSI ship? It's the Orion, right? And I at first I was kind of like, oh, it's interesting how they don't really share any details. Now, big caveat there, the Orion uses old RSI stylings. I see the Orion getting some major concept model redos at some point. For example, I do think the Orion will take on more traditional RSI engine nacelles and stuff. However, one thing that did catch my eye is this almost like forked nose section of the Arastra, right? This kind of like dual pronged kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? We have seen that before, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up here. Let me open it up here. Bear with me, everybody. It's opening up. Does take a minute. This is a big boy. There we go. Let me put this on perspective camera. It is the Orion, and if you look at the front of the Orion, it's kind of got the dual forked front as well. And again, it's a weird little design detail that I don't know if they specifically went off of that, like if that was something they were actually trying to translate into the Arastra, but I thought it was interesting. And that made me wonder if industrial RSI ships are going to kind of take on that versus the more wedge shaped nose of the RSI combat ships. Now, one might say, one might say that the Galaxy kind of uh, bucks that notion a bit because the Galaxy, I think, it well, it's a modular. I look at it more as a utility ship, and not an industrial ship. Although it does have industrial modules, of course, the refinery module and the manufacturing module. But I think it sits in a little bit of a weird place where they just use the traditional website, wedge style, aesthetics because it's more of a utility ship than a purpose-built industrial ship. And I kind of wonder if purpose-built or industrial RSI ships will kind of utilize this sort of dual tongue thing here. Again, I don't know if that's purposeful in any way, but it's something that did catch my eye. Now that again, that being said, the Orion I do see getting some heavy redesign stuff. I see these engines being replaced with engines that are probably more like the Bengals engines, not the same scale, but the Bengals got kind of these big bulking engines. I see the Orion getting a redesign with a lot of that stuff, especially in its rotating section here, just to be able to carry the appropriate size of CU containers and stuff. But Arastra, you're right. It brings together a lot of things that we've seen in RSI ships. One of the biggest ones that I see people comment on is this kind of top mid positioned bridge area. Um, Thoughts on that? That is something that obviously came in initially with the Perseus. That's where we first saw it. And then after the Perseus, we saw it come on to the Galaxy, and now we're seeing it on the Arastra. It makes me think that this is definitely a new design standard for RSIs, at least on their larger scale ships. Would you agree?
I would agree. I prefer a backset bridge
Mm-hmm.
on a vehicle, especially the larger ones, to actually see what you're doing a little bit more.
Yep.
I like also the idea of that second window being like an operational deck,
Yeah.
seeing what you're binding in there. So
The one down on the nose, right?
the one down the nose,
Yeah.
exactly. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Um,
curious to see.
Couple interesting things to look at on this ship. And I generally do this. It's a little bit speculative sometimes, but when inspecting these hollow models, especially the very low detail models, it's a little. Sometimes you have to take some leaps. Now, I will say that when the hollow model goes to the website, this will be on RSI Day. Whenever the hollow model hits the website, generally the website hollow models are higher detail than the in-game IAE hollow models. Believe it or not, they generally are. Um, and by higher detail, it usually means that, like, if you look at these turrets, you can see how simplified these turrets are right here. They're just kind of like, blocks. They do that for the in-game IAE hollow models, but the website one will actually have real turrets on them. Now, a couple things to look at. This up here, you can see this little area. That is a skylight window, just something I noticed. We have both let me remove my work plane here. We have both a port and starboard side docking collar. These look to be the larger ones like you would see on the Hammerhead, right? We also then have the box storage, the material storage. We have on both port and starboard. You see the boxes right here. Let me rotate the camera around. You can see the boxes all stacked in here. It's on both sides, and it looks like they're too deep. You can also see them up here on top. There's additional ones. And I think there's more boxes that go right here. They're just empty right now. But essentially, um, I see this. So these are the box storage. As a matter of fact, I can pull this entire box storage layer out. You can kind of see there. And I'm sure it carries actually more than that. But there's all the refined material, or because I believe, or mined material going into those boxes. It'll be interesting to see if we're able to pull these boxes off of here. Someone says it pushes the boxes out the top. Shimpasta says that. So yeah, that could be what happens. Maybe it pushes them out the top here and other ships can retrieve them. Maybe the Expanse, for example, can fly overhead, retrieve them, or the Galaxy. Remember, the Galaxy can pull up material from the bottom. It pulls it up into its refinery bay. There was that concept image of the Galaxy pulling up a mining bag through its bottom opening. That would work really well with the Arastra if the Galaxy can kind of park above it. This shoots the boxes out the top, and the Galaxy grabs them from the bottom. You know what I mean? So that would work out really well. Um, Other things to note, I saw a lot of content creators talking about these front nacelles here. I saw that there was some stuff on SC Leaks about these possibly being intakes, or sorry, ore collectors and stuff. That apparently the ore bags fit perfectly on those nozzles. It could very well be. I'm not doubting that speculation. However, one thing I usually take note of when I'm looking at these hollow models is I look at what that particular piece, especially when it's a piece I can click on and move out by itself. I'll take a look at what that piece is named in the hollow model, right? So if I go, you can't see it here, but that piece is actually referred to as an intake. Now, that could be engine intake, that could be, refined material intake or ore intake, but I do think it's some sort of engine intake. Again, speculation. Another reason I think that is it's got one of these little winglets on it. And generally in RSI design language, when you look at the Galaxy and the Perseus, those little winglets are generally mounted on engines. I don't know if they're supposed to be some sort of cooling mechanism or whatever. Not always. The Polaris does have, I think, one or two that are not on the engine specifically, but generally they're on engines or or something like that. And again, these are, if you look down at this again, Plutonium, thank you for that follow. Appreciate it. If you look at this, this looks super low poly, right? This piece. I mean, there's like no detail there. We're obviously missing a lot here. I think there's probably like vents up here or some sort of additional ship detailing that we're not seeing. VM, that was kind of my, when I was inspecting the ship, that was all the things I noticed. And obviously the front industrial kind of overlook workstation operator location, which is a pretty big window actually. But anything else that you noticed about this ship that caught your eye?
No, to be honest, I haven't had a chance to examine it quite as close as you did, but I am excited to see where this ship is going to go and how
Yeah,
they're going to develop it. And I'm glad you brought the Orion up because there are clear design elements that they took from the Orion.
I agree. I agree.
Ship that I wish we got to see in game because
Yeah,
the concept artist behind it is amazing. Um, and while I don't think he worked on this ship, I see they took some of the best ideas off the Orion
yeah,
and put them into this one. So
yeah. They're subtle, but they're there. So I'm going to bring up the Galaxy real quick. I know a lot of people were curious about the scale of the Arastra. I did do some measurements on it. I think the hollow model is pretty accurate to the size of the actual ship. So I'm going to drop the Galaxy in here. Stand by. And I'll give you an idea. Oops, ignore that. Those are cameras. So it'll give you a good idea of the scale of the Arastra. The Arastra, based off my measurements, comes in at around 120 meters. So you can see it scaled next to the Galaxy here. Gives you a good idea. I think the Galaxy is, chat, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Galaxy 110 meters? Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Let me turn these off here. So let me align these up. Okay, so they're lined up back to back now. So you can see the distance here. So Arctic Game says 110 meters for the Galaxy. So you can see the 120 meter length here for the Arastra. So it kind of sits in that sweet spot. That's a good ship size. That puts it around that Carrack level of ship size. There's quite a few ships that sit at that scale. It's considered large. That is considered a large ship. So ships that fall into that category are ships like the Nautilus. Obviously the Hammerhead slips in there, Galaxy, Arastra. If you go a little bit lower than that, you get into the Perseus, which is 100 meters long, just a little bit smaller. If you start getting much bigger than that, you start creeping into ship sizes like the Odyssey, right, which comes in at about 140 meters. Or another ship that falls in this category is the Liberator at 125 meters. So they all kind of sit in that large range, but that gives you an idea of scale there. Yeah, so definitely a large ship, Um, I think, and I see that Captain Thrash Panda on YouTube says quite large for a large ship. I hope they make the Reclaimer larger to fit the capital ship size. So I think there's kind of two ways to look at ship scale, right? One of them is its overall size, and the other one is its component size. Um, CIG has already said during CitizenCon that a lot of ships are about to see major component reworks, right, in terms of component size, because a lot of people initially sort of freaked out when they saw the Zeus and its components versus something like the Spirit, but then they said, well, the Spirit's going to get a rebalance on its components. I could totally see the Reclaimer getting some of its components bumped up to capital. I look at the Reclaimer as a capital ship. I look at it as a capital ship right up there with the Orion. I do think the Reclaimer has one capital component and then the rest are like larges. You can correct me on that, but we also have seen that they've done that with the Polaris. And the Polaris has grown. My last measurement puts it at about 168 meters. I think that could give or take 5 meters here or there, but based off measurements I did with the Saber and the cutaway they did, it was roughly about 168 meters long. That has full capital components. So there's kind of two ways to look at ship scale from that perspective. But anyways, yes, it's quite large for a large ship, but I think if you get much bigger on the large ship scale of, or like range, to me, the top end large ship is the Odyssey. Now, but even with the Odyssey, there was some back and forth with CIG, and even the Liberator, where there were at times they referred to it as a capital, and there was times they referred to it as a large. And when they were pressed on it, they kind of went more the large direction. I remember that being a thing with the Liberator. I look at the Odyssey as being the last of the large ships. And when you get past the Odyssey at about 140 meters, you start going into capital level, because at that point the ships have gotten so big that they require capital components to power them, and to do shield, to all that stuff. So VM, do you have any thoughts on that when it comes to ship scale? Do you have any sort of metric? I know there's probably not one true metric. I'm sure ships are looked at in many different ways,
I'm
even by
going
CIG.
to I'm going to be honest, it feels very arbitrary.
Yeah.
I don't know where to draw the line. I do, if it's oh man, it's a capital ship if you think it's a capital ship.
Yeah.
If it's your 100i and you think you're a capital ship, I'm not, who am I to judge?
Yeah.
Um, but it's currently fluid. It's like a lot of things. You can get into an argument over ship sizes. What is a capital? What is a large? Then you get into the whole ship classifications. Is this a frigate? Is this a destroyer?
Yeah.
There are no hard and fast rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And by the way, everyone, thanks for hanging out with tonight. We got a great crowd. Got over 100 people watching on YouTube, and we got 65-ish or so watching on Twitch. That's really awesome. I appreciate it. Again, we're going to have a lot of cool coverage on IAE going through the event. Ender will be on the show. You never know. Starlet might even pop on an episode. We'll see. I think there's all kinds of good stuff that could happen. I saw there was a question in chat from Riddick B. Richard on Twitch saying, "Will they rework the Reclaimer so that it gets its snub components and airlocks?" I think the Reclaimer will probably get some sort of pass, um, call it gold standard or whatever, whenever CIG gets back around to Aegis at some point. Um, I don't know when they'll get back to Aegis. However, it's possible they could revisit Aegis a little bit when they get closer to putting the Idris in the game for everybody. When we get to that point, you could see maybe a team at CIG focus on Aegis for a little bit. I don't think that will be the case. I think they'll just get the Idris prepped, but you never know. In terms of Aegis, though, we still have the Nautilus. That's a ship that we still need to see. So Aegis does have some large ships that still need to be done. But anyway, that is where the current Arastra sits in terms of scale, right there at about 120 meters. Again, everyone, it's not too scientific how I do that. I have my scale in Cinema 4D set 2 meters. So generally what I do is I just put a box in here, and you can't see it, but the box I can scale. And right now it's set to 200 by 200 by 200 meters on the X, Y, and Z. What I do is I usually bring that down to just a small number like 20, right? And then I just bring it over to my ship and I just scale this out. It's again not super scientific. There's better ways to do this. This is just my kind of back of the napkin math of like getting a rough scale. Yep, that's pretty much it. I'm lined up on the back side and I'm lined up on the front side. And if I look at the scale of this box, I know you can't see it because it's off screen. It says 119 meters. Again, this is a concept mesh. I guarantee it'll get somewhere around 120 or somewhere. It's going to land somewhere around that period, that size. So there you go. That's how I get the back of the napkin math a lot of times. Now, that's not to say CIG has not put hollow models into the game at the wrong scale. That has happened before. They put some hollow models in before that are like 2 meters long, but they're a large ship. It does happen, but I think nowadays it's actually pretty rare. When the hollow models go in, they actually do have them scaled appropriately. So Scubex says, and sorry if we missed any questions. Me and VM will be on the lookout, but I think here's another one. Do you think the Arastra has some drones? Good question. What do you think, VM?
No, only because Well, I'm not even going to say no. I'm going to say let's wait and see what they announce.
Yep.
They haven't talked about drones for a long, long
Yeah.
time. That said, I would love a drone mining ship. So even if it's not the Arasta, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm starting to think like an Argo drone miner would be kind of amazing.
Yeah, drones are something I really wish would get a talk at some point, even if CIG could just reiterate the plan for those. I almost wonder if they're actively avoiding doing too much drone stuff because there's a lot of ships that have not been put into production, and I think the pretty obvious reason why they never went into production is their reliance on drones. I think ships like the Vulcan, um, the Crucible, these are all the Nautilus uses drones. There's the Carrack is in the game, but it doesn't have its drones. I almost wonder if they're being a little careful with that. However, we've seen the drones. You can look at the drones on Fleet Viewer. I can actually pull up over here. I'll just add one. There's actually quite a few different types of drones in Star Citizen. This is kind of one of the drones here. I think this drone here is made by Aegis, if I remember correctly. I think it's an Aegis repair drone. It may be made by someone else, but that's one type of drone. There's other type of drones as well. The Nautilus carries the Nemo drone, which is a mine defusal or mine disarmament drone that looks different from this. VM, go ahead.
I was gonna say the low tech hangars, Lorville, Area 18, and the rest stations. If you look up, it says drone bay. Those are labeled as drones sitting right above.
Yeah,
So they're much lower poly than what you have there, but you probably pass a drone in the
yeah,
game every
yeah,
time you get out of a hangar.
probably so. And for those of you that ever obviously won't pull it up here, but it's out in the wild. You don't have to search too hard to find it. There's the old Nautilus concept mesh walkthrough video that one of the developers put up, I think, a part of their portfolio or something. Either way, um, in that walkthrough, they walk through the drone room and you see the drones in there, and they're actually quite big. They're surprisingly big. The drones are pretty meaty. But anyway, it's still something we know is planned. I do think it would be cool to see some drones, but what I see the Arasta or Arastra, however it's pronounced, I see it focusing primarily on tractor beam technology, meaning ships and people will pull things on and off the ships. The ship will be able to eject boxes out the top instead of drones having to move that stuff around. Another question here. Did you find any mining turrets or is it a ground miner? Well, that's a great question. I don't think we saw any mining turrets, but I think you know, it'd be silly not to state the obvious here. There's these two giant things on front here, these two big arms. Now, here's what I'm wondering. And so I'm glad who actually asked this? Zarek Masters on YouTube asked this. So I'm glad you brought this question up, Zarek. I'm actually wondering if there's something missing from this model up here, which is very possible. And here's what I'm wondering if we're missing. I'm wondering if we're missing some sort of mining laser or grinders or something. And the reason or maybe these arms do something that cause rocks to break up that aren't laser technology. And here's the reason why. If you again, if I zoom down here, you can kind of see how when we get down to this arm stuff, it gets very simplified. It's very obvious they've simplified this model. This almost looks like something's been chopped off or just didn't make the cut in the hollow model. And if you think, and I'll go ahead and say something else, if you think that hollow models don't always like lose big important things, that's wrong. They do all the time. You actually during IAE you can see some hollow models that are missing things. Go look at the Kraken when its hollow model view is. It's missing most of its turrets. It's especially missing its size 8 main gun up on the nose. The gimbal's there for it, but the turret's always missing. The hollow viewers don't always contain all the data. That's important to remember about these ships. VM, did you want to add anything there?
I was gonna say I could almost see some mining arms
Mm-hmm.
slotting into some of the recesses on those. Think
Yeah,
of almost like a vulture, but with mining arms.
I could too. I think that's a great point. And so, and here's another reason why I say that. Remember how I said that, like, I like to click on parts and pieces, and it sort of tells you what it is. So, for example, when I click on this piece, the model viewer says intakes. If I click on this piece up here, it says it's literally called top piece. If I click on this back here, this back piece, it's literally called back piece. If I click over here, these are called thrusters. If I click on these front arms, that is literally what they're called. They're called front arms. Okay, here they are, and they're front arms. So I think you're probably right, VM. I think there's something that comes out of these arms and extends, and I think if you're going to do something like the vulture makes the most sense. Or think of like super prospector, but instead of one laser, two big lasers come out, right, and are able to duel a rock together. That would be kind of interesting. I guess we'll see. But it would also be cool if they did something wildly different. Like what if these crazy arms here are able to project some sort of, I'm just going to totally go off the side of the mountain here. What if they were able to, push out some sort of different magic beam that actually, vibrates rocks into fall, disintegrating and stuff like that, which actually is a mining technique. So, in real life, so they could do anything here. But I do think these arms have something more substantial to them than just being big arms that come out. You know what I mean? Um, so that'll be interesting to see what that means, like what that means for the ship. If there's some sort of functionality here. Again, if I go back to the Orion, you'll notice that its big arms up here actually do have stuff going on. It actually has the big grinders right here, but we've got these big laser cutters up here, tractor beams or whatever they are. We've got these big unfolding arms and stuff. We got all kinds of stuff up on the front of the Orion. It's almost like the arms, these two big front arms, are simply arms to hold parts and pieces, right? So think of like rails on a rifle or a gun. The rails hold your optics, they hold your laser, they hold all that stuff. I almost feel like that these what these arms are for, and that's why that they're called arms, because they hold on to other things that are important for the ship. Um, I could see that being the what these arms do up here. So that'll be really interesting to see. All right, that is the Arastra. Should we move on? Are we ready to move on to the last ship we're highlighting tonight? Think so. Okay. So yes, everyone, heavy miner from RSI concept. This will not be going flight ready. This is a concept ship. It's about 120 meters long. If I had to guess, it's well. The other thing that's important to remember is that the Orion did go up in price. I'm pulling up my list right here. The Orion went up. Let me pull up that list here. Where did I put it? Or did I? Here we go. So the Orion went up from $650 to it went up to $650. So it jumped $75. I think the reason the RSI Orion went up is specifically because this ship now has to fit in that price point. If the Galaxy is that, what is the Galaxy? 350, 375, something like that. I think that means that this ship, socially confused, says 400. Is it 400 for the Galaxy? Or is that what you're betting for this ship? Okay. Yeah, I think this ship is going to be somewhere between 375 and 450. That's my guess for this. I think it's going to be something more like 375-ish or so for the war bond, and then something like maybe 400 for the credit. And that's me going a little bit on the high side. The reason is that it's not, it's not much bigger than the Galaxy, and we have to kind of keep in mind the Galaxy's price. So I'm seeing some prices come up in chat here. Looks like we're getting all kinds of speculation, all pretty much all the way from 350 all the way up to 500. So yeah, we got a little bit of a range. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to the next ship. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to bring up for the next ship. We're going to do it a little differently. We're going to bring up. Stand by, everyone. Okay, stand by, everybody. Let me get my windows set here. Let me get my windows set. Okay. Okay, for the next ship, we are going to talk about the Suylen. Suylen. Am I saying that right? I'm going with you, VM. I'm going to make you the expert on the name for this ship.
We'll call it Susan.
It's the
It'll
Susan.
be,
It's the Gatac Suylen.
This poor ship probably goes into Starbucks and gets a different name written on its cup every single day.
Every single time. Okay. So let's talk for a minute. First off, these images you see here are the actually, sorry, they're a little bit all over the place here. Let me see if I can fix that. I got it about as lined up as I can. Sorry about that, everyone. Let me see if I can fix that. While I'm fixing this, can you tell everyone, VM, what we're looking at here?
This, we believe, is the... Actually, I should say we believe. It is the Suylen that was in PTU.
Yeah.
At least the files are in. So we're expecting this to show up on Alien Day.
Yep.
So a little bit of a leak here. I think the fact that the rest of the internet's already picked up on it, I don't feel quite as bad. I apologize to the CIG artists because I know they love being able to show off these themselves. So
yeah. I've always felt the same, and I've like, when it hits PTU, the PTU files at that point, they just got to know it's out there. I'm sure that frustrates them to some degree, but and that's partially why I sometimes wait till night, because I'm like, you know what, everyone's got it out there at this point, so I feel like it's fair game. But tell people why we're looking at two images here, and I want to go ahead and preface everyone. This is the Fleet Viewer model or this is the images that will be in Fleet Viewer for the Suylen, whatever it's called. So what are we looking at, VM?
If you've looked at images, the leaked images of the Suylen on the internet, you've probably seen something more like the image on the left. And that is the Suylen in flight mode.
Right.
What a lot of people haven't really appreciated is the interior of the ship isn't horizontal to that. So this ship is actually broken up vertically. So if you look at that right image, that is actually why it's three-tiered.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an engineering section. Above that's a habitation section. And then the cockpit with what I'm guessing is a rotating seat that pops you up into that bubble at the right orientation. Right. So probably the best way I could describe it is for you, those of you who have watched The Expanse, the way the Rocinante split up into decks. See, we're mangling all kinds of names here tonight.
That's okay. That's what we do here.
But that is the layout of the ship.
Yes.
And that is one of the things that I think, even if you were most who have seen the leaks, again, the ship on the left, don't appreciate how it's laid out. And I think that's going to blow a lot of minds come Thursday when IAE it opens and they've got a ship there, and you walk in and realize that this thing's pointing straight up.
VM, I'm not going to show it if you don't want me to. You just say yeah or nay. You showed me a cutaway today.
I did, and it crashed.
Okay, but I have it. Do you have the image you share with me? Is that cutaway okay to show? It's okay if it's not.
Let's hold off.
We're going to hold off on that.
We'll hold off until after Thursday, because I think...
Yes, the Suylen's on it, so it'll be here sooner than everyone thinks.
The reason I don't want to show it off is, and I'm even a little bit shy on these images,
True, right.
The amount of detail in these materials on the ship is insane.
It's next level, yeah.
I'm not sure I've done it justice.
Right.
I'm very nervous that I'm going to walk in, see the actual ship, and go, I need to fix a whole bunch of things.
Right. Well, let's
go
ahead.
It is a gorgeous ship. It is a gorgeous ship.
On that note, VM, I am going to bring up this image, which is the promo image for it. You can see it's pretty close. You can kind of see this is all beautified up. I'm just going to show this for a minute. Suylen, I'm going to call it that. But going back to our image, what we're talking about here is we're talking about a radical departure for ship design and landing capabilities, how the interior of a ship is laid out. This is going to be a radical departure. And to me, I actually generally am not interested in alien ships. However, Gatac, even from the day that the Raylan was shown off, fascinates me. I really love the Gatac stuff. If this does land vertically like you think, how does one do you suspect that we're going to have some sort of rotating cockpit or some sort of rotating, you know, bridge in here, if you want to call it a bridge? I guess it's more of a cockpit, some sort of rotating thing that reorientates when we go into landed mode?
I suspect if we already have it. I mean, we've already have the rotating cockpit on the not the Sentakiai, the
Uh,
Cartual. The
Cartual, right?
Cartual has it. So of course the difference is the ship actually rotates around the cockpit rather
Right,
than the other way
right,
around. But I believe with this ship, it's going to be the same thing. Is as you get into the seat, you're going to sit, and it's going to pop you up and probably have to twist to get you into that cockpit bubble
right,
in the right
right.
orientation. But we're just gonna have to see on come IAE. There's
Yeah,
a lot of questions I have about this ship that even the game files don't answer,
yeah. So here
and
we
that's what I
go.
think is the most exciting thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting ship. I love one of the things I think I love about these ships is this is a ship that, and I would put the Cartual in this category. I actually don't think I would put the Santaki Eye in this category, or maybe I would, but specifically with these ships from Gatac, to me, when you see these things from a distance coming, there's no mystery. You are looking at an alien ship, right? Like 100% immediately. This is not human. And what I particularly love about it is the geometric design that's going on here, which is something that is not even present in, for example, the Cartual and the Sentakiai, and all the other alien ships, the merchantman and the defender and all that. There's something here that in what you've described with the interior, where the interior is actually made for when the ship is upright. To me, there's both exterior and interior. There's going to be no confusing that you're in exotic technology, right? And what I mean by that is, like, when you look at like the Talon or the Defender, yes, they've got kind of organic lines and stuff, but you still kind of it is still sort of like a normal ship, right? You walk up the stairs, you're in the foyer entrance room, you walk up a short flight of stairs or whatever, there's your cockpit seat, you get in it, you're good. They differ from that a little bit, but this is a ship that's going to be wildly different. I see the Raylan being wildly different. I'm still a little unsure of how this thing is going to land. I think that all could all be solved with just better landing radar and visualization. But but in your inspecting of the model, were you able to pull any additional information about how this may function from like a transitionary flight perspective? Like, do you go into a landing mode, or do you go into VTOL mode, and then VTOL mode like rotates your seat and cockpit in there and actually forces the ship down? Like, how does one even get in the position to land this? Taking
That
off
is
would
an
be
excellent
easy.
question.
Taking off will be easy. It's the landing
Unless
that's the
and
problem.
it taking off, unless you've been assigned a hangar with front opening doors, and you've got to figure out how to very awkwardly shimmy out
Yeah,
and then go. Like I said, a lot of more questions than answers on how this ship is going to operate. I
yeah,
can tell you that those larger arms do have landing gear feet at the tips of them, so those will apparently probably come down
yeah. Down
at an
these
angle.
parts and pieces here. Yeah.
There's probably the smaller winglets will probably come down as well. Um, there's a lot of detail on the ship, though. A lot of hints at moving parts
Yeah.
and flaps. So how that's going to work, I couldn't tell you, and I'm excited to see.
Yeah. Forlorn, thank you
But
for the follow. Yeah. Remember what I said earlier about how you can click on a ship and then look at that piece's name to get a good idea of what it is? Same thing here. I've clicked on this top portion here. You can see this little piece. When I click on that and I look at the model inspector in Cinema 4D, again, it's off screen. It says wings large, top gear lower. So again, it's part of
yep,
the landing gear, just like VM said, which all but confirms that this goes into a vertical stance when it lands. Um, Stort, thank you for that follow. Really appreciate it. Um, yeah, really interesting ship. Is it? And we've heard that this is possible cargo ship or like just generic utility ship. Do we know?
I believe it's a starter cargo ship. The
Mm-hmm.
question is where does the cargo go? And if you zoom into that backside,
Yeah.
um, on the other end, there are some little square railings, for lack of a better word, which little tractor beams that seem to pop down
Mm,
that will
yeah.
kind of cradle external cargo. But
So
again, how's that going to work? How does that interact with the rest of the ship?
so I noticed something when I was digging around the railing, or sorry, this ship. Let me look here. Let me find it. Okay. So yeah, this right here, this piece right here, these
Yep.
little
Yep.
pieces, though, yeah, those are called, the name of those are body cargo arms, right? And then what is this piece here? Stand by. Again, this is, you're seeing it all in real time, folks. Okay, there's nothing there. But yeah, those are the body cargo arms. So I'm assuming it holds cargo. Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
So
It's
I
funny.
think what
It's
has
Go ahead.
I was going to say I think what has me most interested is this. This is said to be a starter ship, and the amount of work and detail that goes into this is far
Crazy.
beyond ships medium to large size.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the closest, most complicated starter ship might be maybe the Nomad, and that's fairly clean. This thing has an incredible amount of moving parts and
Yeah.
detailing, and the
Complexity. Yeah.
interior materials are just every part about it just screams that love, that a lot of polish and attention to detail went into this buy. So
Yeah. And if you remember the Raylan also had a lot of complexity in its transformations. As a matter of fact, sorry, everyone, I'm going to bring up, I need to commandeer the screen for a second here. I'm going to bring up a web page here. I'm going to go back to the Raylan's sale page here, which is obviously the bigger ship in the Gatac line. They have an animation here. I think this one animates. Let's see. And you can see again the complex animation here that's going on. We're talking major portions of the ship transforming. Now, this doesn't have a landing position that requires the entire ship to land vertically or anything, but this is still a very complex, lot of moving pieces, going on with this ship. It's not only the main nacelles here moving, but the thrusters all individually move. And again, there's a lot of like secondary pieces in there that are moving as well. Just really beautiful transformations. And what's really cool about the Raylan, for example, and I think it's the same with the Suylen, is that, and what I really like about it is that in flight mode and in landed mode, in each position, the ship looks like striking, right? Like just fascinating looking. Like, and what I mean by that is obviously in flight mode, they've got that almost like shooting star kind of, coming right at you sort of look. However, in landed mode, the Raylan almost takes it almost takes like this sort of laid down look to it, right? Where it almost looks like it's laying down or hunching down. And then the obviously the Suylen lands vertically, like if you were to come up on an outpost and you saw the Suylen sitting there parked, think of this like new player. You're a new player. You got your 100i, right? Your pretty standard ship, and you come up on the Suylen, and it's landed there, and that thing lifts off the ground, transforms above the landing pad, and fires off. I guarantee you 95% of those new players are going, "What is that ship and how do I get it?" You know what I mean? It's just instantly cool, instantly cool. And again, I really thought the Raylan set in that uh position, all on its own. And when I first heard of this ship, I didn't think, I was like, okay, it's got that kind of rail-in flight mode look to it, but I was like, it really didn't interest me. But what started to really pique my interest is when I heard about the interior being inverted. And I was like, oh wow, this is gonna be one of those ships that when a new player sees it, or if there's a new player playing and you say, hey, let me show you a ship, they now become a Star Citizen, like, full-on backer. You know what I mean? It's just one of those ships that when you see it, you're like, "Holy hell, that's cool." There's other ships that fall into that category too, you know? I always say this about the Kraken. The Kraken is one of those ships, love or hate Drake. When players see the Kraken, even if they never own it, they're like, "Holy hell, that's a cool ship." It's a giant it's the GI Joe aircraft carrier, you know what I mean? There's some ships that just strike that chord. I think the Polaris is that too. It's even though it's not anything like this, people immediately go, "Oh, it's a Star Destroyer ship." It's the big wedge-shaped ship. And there's some of those ships that just hit those fantasy points. And I think Gatac is quickly becoming one of those manufacturers that is going to wow people.
Really, really quick, I wanted to shout out a comment from Robert Vaught over on YouTube because he says talked about the Sulian as the starter, the Raylan as the larger cargo vessel. But then he asked, what does the medium or capital Xi'an ship look like? And I think we've actually had a little bit of a tease in the Squadron 42 trailer, if I remember correctly. That
Yes,
large ship in the background. So
that the lightning
we've
hits
had,
behind. Yep,
yes.
yep,
So I hope two things. One, I hope that's the design language that we get to see more Xi'an ships in the near future.
yep,
But I also wonder with the release of Squadron 42 if some of those are completed and will be in game, come to
yep,
our game
yep.
side of the game as well.
Um, yeah, that's a great point. Um, let's take a quick look at a few things here. So, there's been a lot of online talk about scale for this ship. So we're going to use our meter stick here. You can see our stick here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out on the length side of things. It's somewhere around there. Let's see how we're lining up here, everyone. Let's get some measurements for the Suylen, shall we? Okay, so that's about its length, right? Then we are going to flip to a top or a frontal view. We're going to duplicate our yardstick and we're going to go this way with it. You're gonna get a good sense of how big the profile is for this ship. Okay, that's roughly right. We don't have to be exact, but okay. So in terms of height, when this thing is in flight mode, we're looking at something like 25 meters high. And from a oops, I'm not showing it. Sorry, everyone. Stand by, stand by. Let's go here. So from a length standpoint, we're looking at a length of roughly 15 meters. So it's only about 15 meters long. Thank you, Zarek. Appreciate it. So it's only about 15 meters long. And in flight mode view, we're looking at something about 25 meters high. Now, I don't have this ship in landed mode in cinema, so I can't tell you the height when it's in landed mode. But it's kind of a snug little ship. I mean, when you think about it from a scale perspective, what we could do actually is I could bring up. Let me go ahead and bring this up here. Well, I'm finding this. Is there anything additional you want to say about this ship, VM? Anything that stuck out to you when kind of inspecting it and all that good stuff?
Everything. No, actually everything. Again, I think this is one we're going to have to see in game to truly appreciate
Yeah,
because this only scratches the surface.
yeah, yeah, 100%. All right. So what I wanted to do was bring in just another ship. Okay, let me turn off joints. Okay. So obviously I brought in the Reliant. There is the Reliant next to the Suylen. Kind of gives you an idea of scale. The Suylen's not a big ship. It's not a big ship at all. I mean, it is big from like a profile standpoint in flight mode, and it's got an imposing look. But you got to remember, these big nacelles don't make up its interior space, right? You really have to kind of look at just this back area. And when you do that, like if we flip around to the backside here, you can see the Suylen is not. It's not a big ship. It's a small ship. I'm sure it's a pretty cramped interior, but again, it's going to be laid out different, different than any other ship we've seen. So it'll be really interesting to see how that space feels. I'm so excited. I'm so glad this ship is on the first day. What a way to kick off IAE, because this ship is going to generate some real interest. Yeah,
Lucy mentioned it would be nice to have at least 3 hard points on each of the wings. I don't know if it's visible on the hollow viewer model. There's
it's not.
actually, I
No,
think, a hard point in between the
yeah,
wings.
that's
It's
where
kind of
I think
obscured a
that's where
little
the
bit.
guns mount there, though.
Right, exactly. And then the
One,
wings, or
two,
rather
three.
the wing nacelles themselves, if you notice, there's those 4 holes. I believe those are missile tubes.
Oh, really?
So
These?
I believe those are missile
Well, you
tubes.
know what? Let's click on one and let's go see what the inspector calls them. Missile launcher top 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yes, that is exactly what they are. Thank you. Those are your missile tubes. What a cool place for the missiles to come out. I was also going to bring in another ship because, again, just taking a look at scale, let's bring in a small ship like the Arrow here. Oops. And we'll plop that down. All these are to scale. So that helps. All right, and there is the Arrow. Again, additional sense of scale. Sometimes these ships are hard to understand the scale. I mean, the Suylen is one of those ships, it looks like it could be massive, you know what I mean? But there it is with some other ships. So when VMXEO says this is a starter ship, that's exactly what he means. It's actually a pretty small ship. And, you know, it's just about space usage. So for example, again, I'll rotate back around to it, but if you look at the actual habitable area, which is just this sort of little bubble, it's not much different than a Reliant in terms of scale. So small ship. And again, here's something to think about. Now, I know everyone watched that video from John Crew, and he showed off a bunch of ships that were going to be in the next 12 months, right? But we're pretty positive that that video did not include all the ships that will be available in 12 months. And the reason is that that video did not include the Santaki Eye. So unless they apparently, plan on holding off on that ship for 12 months, the Santaki Eye wasn't in there. And the Apollo wasn't in there. We know the Apollo's in active production now. It may not come out in 12 months, but we know that video did not have everything. We also know that CIG, especially when it comes to alien ships, generally, they've said this with the Banu Merchantman, generally doesn't want to just one off it, right? So it makes you wonder if the Raylan is coming, like going into production. Back at the last, was it Invictus or last IAE? I forget. They had that roundtable where John Crew did say that the Raylan was going in production the next 12 months. And that was a while back. And I think things got delayed. But I think this means the Raylan's actually going into production. So those of you that were wanting the bigger ship, I think it will come. And I know we got a few requests here for comparisons. Someone's asking to see it next to the Nomad. Execute's asking to see it next to a Cutlass Freelancer, Spirit, and the Zeus. I don't know if I have all those models ready, but we can throw up a few. Let's see. I know someone asked about the stand by here, the Nomad. Let me see. Let me see which ones I got available. And while I'm doing that, VM, let me ask you this. Anything is sorry, and I know I've asked you a little bit this already, but is there anything else in your inspecting of this ship? Any other surprises it holds? And do we have do we know how much SEU it carries? Did that leak out? I can't remember if it did.
I've seen numbers all over the place.
Yeah,
There's a few numbers. Someone said 6 SCU in chat a little while ago. That
gotcha.
seems reasonable, but
Gotcha.
I have not seen anything official, so it could be
Yeah.
wildly off.
All right, there is next to the Nomad. Let me see what else I got. I'll bring up. I know I got a Cutlass in here. I'm just looking at models that not only I have in like ready. These are just non-textured models, by the way, but I know these are to scale, which is why I'm using these models. They're 100% to scale, so to give you a good idea of what we're looking at. So there is the Cutlass next to the Suylen. Again, you got to look at that usable space, right? Not just its overall front profile. From the profile, it looks pretty big and intimidating, but when you push out to something like this, you kind of go, "Oh, okay, it's actually pretty small." Let me find a good angle here to view these. The Cutlass, from the Cutlass, you should be able to kind of get a good idea of like, the Freelancer and stuff like that. Now, the Zeus, on the other hand, the Zeus is a much bigger ship coming in at 46 meters. So the Zeus, yeah, quite large. I don't even know if I have that model ready. Let me look. I do have an STL file here though, the ES. Let me see if this even loads. Um, yeah, let me drop this in there, and that should give everyone a good idea of scale. Let me flip this around because they always come in the wrong way. But there's the Zeus. So I forget whoever all the people that asked. I know Execute was asking, but that gives you a good idea of scale between the Suylen and a little bit of a cross section of ships. We showed the Reliant, we showed the Arrow, and we're showing the Era or the Nomad, Cuddy, and Zeus. So it's a small ship. It's a tiny little ship, but again, I'm going to be really curious. Yeah, no problem, Execute, no problem at all. I'm going to be really curious on Thursday. I think we get the ISC, that is the ship show. I think that's what they said. They always do a ship show episode, so I think that's this Thursday. I could be mistaken. Um, and obviously they're going to talk about this ship. They're going to talk about the Suylen. I'm going to be really interested to hear if John Crew says anything about the Raylan. Again, they made it quite clear at CitizenCon that they're kind of taking these ships on in terms of ship families. Now, I don't think that will always be the case. I think there will be some one-offs, but we know they mentioned that, so I'll be really curious to see if they plan on going from like one of the teams goes from Suylen into Raylan. Um, but yeah, thank you for the follow, Citizen Zombie. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts on that, VM? Obviously, if you know something you're not supposed to say, just refrain from even answering. But do you feel like it makes sense, especially with an alien ship, which we've heard with the Merchantman? Alien stuff's tricky to do, especially when it's a new design language. Do you see them possibly moving from Suylen into Raylan?
I do, and here's why.
Yeah.
I understand why when they say alien is tricky, I think it's primarily Banu ships.
Mm-hmm.
So they have much more organic and flowing lines.
Yeah.
And the Raylan, I think, is still, even though it's alien, it's still easy to work with. Um,
Oh,
so I
okay.
think
And
this was a good place to start with the
yeah,
design language for the Raylan because it can be easily extended to, or sorry, with the Suylen, so it can be extended out to the Raylan,
yeah,
where you don't have to do these bespoke organic pieces for every part of the ship. You've got your panels, you've
yeah.
got your design, you've got your buttons. Those can be reused easily.
And
So
Execute says in chat, Execute says that CIG said they were going to be moving from Santucky to Raylan.
to
That's really cool.
Raylan.
I didn't know they said that, but again, makes sense. It makes sense that the team who was probably working on the Santucky, if I had to guess, they probably the same team that maybe worked on the rail or the Suylen. Like I could see that. And then it would make sense, I guess, for them to move on then to the Raylan. Um, I have the Raylan in buyback and I wanted to get it back. But what's funny is The rail, I always thought the rail, I still think the Raylan's super cool, but I was also sort of thinking, man, is it too big of a ship for me? Like, do I need it? But the Sulium might scratch that itch for me. Um, without having to put out get the Raylan out of buyback. I think the bigger question here, there's two big questions. So the Sulian was listed in the game files as the Gamma. Um, A, here's the first part of that question. Do we think there's variance? And B, what do we think the cost of this ship is going to be? What do we surmise? First off, let's take it. Do we think do we think there's going to be variance, and not so much just because of the gamma denomination, but specifically because it's a starter ship?
I'm gonna go with no, and let
Hmm.
me explain why. The gamma designation in the files is at the beginning where the manufacturer
Hmm.
is. So the manufacturers are not always. Gatac is GAMA. It probably stands for something. CAG probably is their own way of doing that, but I think that's just referring to the fact that it's a Gatac ship.
Yeah.
There's other manufacturers that don't follow a strict naming convention when it comes to
Oh, I see.
what the
Gamma
name is
Gatac
and what the
manufacturer. Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
makes
exactly.
sense.
So
Makes
it's
sense.
probably this is I think this is the first Gatac ship. So
Yeah, yeah, it is
um
to go flight ready.
now could it there be I'm trying to think, could there be variants? And I'm trying to think of what variants you could get away with. It's not going to be like the cutter where it has an internal, it doesn't have an internal cargo area, so you can't really repurpose much inside the ship
Yeah,
for another role. Um, I think one of the things you get with an alien ship is a little bit more of a jack of all trades,
yeah.
whereas most of the manufacturers typically tend to stay specialized. So,
There's not really
yeah.
other opportunities for additional weapon mounts and stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and that's just we rarely get alien variants. I mean, we've got the Talon and the Shrike,
Yeah,
and that wasn't that big of a difference.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
so I'm
yeah, I'm
maybe
sort of leaning the
yeah.
same way. No variance, just because there doesn't seem to be a lot of opportunity to do anything different with the ship, um, especially on a starter level. You know what I mean? It's yeah, it's seen, and the fact that it's got the weaponry it's going to be able to carry cargo. It seems like they're purposefully kind of putting it in the kind of the generalized sort of encompasses everything sort of ship. So I saw someone in chat ask the question. Is this would you consider this a competitor to the Avenger? I think that could be a competitor technically to any ship you see competing with it. I know that's a little bit of a you know uh, terrible answer, but in a way, especially when we get into alien stuff, I think there is a lot of subjective. There's a lot of subjective reasoning about why you would possibly buy one over another. I mean, so for example, alien ships specifically, there's that whole thing about the alien tax. How they're just a little bit more expensive, but a lot of people try to quantify these ships based off, well, what weapons does it have? What components does it have? Whatever. But I hate to say it, CIG also bases it off other items too that aren't quite as tangible. Sometimes it's just rule of cool stuff. Sometimes I think they price stuff based off popularity. Not mean then that doesn't always mean they price things higher because of popularity. Sometimes I think they price things lower because they know it's going to be popular and sell a shit ton. But I think the alien stuff generally has a little bit of a price add-on. I think Origin has a little bit of that. I think there's a lot of ways to go with that. So because of those differences, it's hard to just sometimes say, well, it's the competitor to this. Um, it's really going to. I think what we have to not forget is we have to not forget things like play style, personal preference, all that type of stuff. I think CIG does create ships sometimes that have a lot of crossover and that they don't really compete because they're kind of one and the same, but they cater to different audiences just based off stylings or a lot of things like that. So I don't know. To me, it's hard to quantify ships sometimes based off just a pure comparative analysis. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes ships are made to compete with each other. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying it's not always easy. VM.
I was gonna say it's not a direct Avenger competitor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's almost sits in a spot between the Avenger and the Nomad. So it's got the kind of the class and the interior
Hmm.
space of a Nomad, but the lack of cargo of a Avenger Titan. Is the
Right.
best way of saying it. So
Interesting. Yeah.
if you if you like if you like your Titan but wish you had a kitchen and a bathroom, and maybe the insides was a little nicer, a little newer, maybe it's for you.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be a personal preference. And I think with the alien stuff specifically, because I think the alien stuff it has just enough kind of, what's the right word? Quirkiness about it sometimes that it is specifically speaking to a certain audience. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. And here's the thing: we're only speculating a little bit right now. We will need to see, you know, the actual ship reveal, get all of its final specs. I'm sure the ship team will talk about it. We need to see, for example, how it goes into its landed mode, right? For example, if CIG didn't think that through well enough and people really like this ship and get out there and start flying around and it turns into the most pain in the ass landing procedure ever, um, I could see people melting it. So, for example, I think the landed mode could be great for top down hangars, but how easy is it going to be able to land this thing when going into a side loading hangar? I don't know. Maybe it's super easy. Maybe they've thought about all that. It's going to be all new, but it's like I said, it's going to be exciting to see. And there's just a lot, like you said, VM. There's just a lot of unanswered questions about this ship. So, um, yeah, that being said, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We covered the Storm AA. We covered, which, do I still have that up? I guess I don't. Let me look. Stand by, everyone. Just do a quick recap. We covered the Storm AA. We covered, which is this right here. If you hadn't looked before, let me kill my Axie. Yeah, the Storm AA. Why is it still showing? There we go. Yeah, Storm AA. And for some reason, my AA mount went away. Where did that go? Where did that go? That's odd. There it is. Storm AA with the missile launcher AA turret thing attached. There it is. Um, really cool. We also have the regular Storm. Both of those are going drive ready, as I'm going to call it, on Tumbril Day. I suspect this will be a big seller, especially at its price point. We went through the Arastra, obviously, and then finally the Suylen. So again, covered a lot of ground on ships. I think it's going to be a fun IE. It's definitely a big cross section of stuff. Ground from ground vehicle to a crazy alien ship to big bulking industrial ship. Something for everyone in there. Personally, I'm um originally was going into IE not super looking forward to any one ship. When I originally heard the RSI Minor was going to be kind of fully unveiled there, I was kind of like, yeah, okay. But I'm more interested now, and after seeing it and seeing some of the possibilities there. Um, what about you, VM? Do you see any additions being made to your fleet for IAE?
I I think the Cillian might open up my pocketbook.
Might open the pocketbook. Oh boy.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to see it in game. I do want to see it in game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree.
we,
I
we might
agree.
have to we might have to circle around to this subject our next stream, and once
Yes.
we've actually gotten around to fly over it.
Yeah, again, I think there's going to be a lot to talk about there when we get the reveals, and it'll be interesting to see what all is talked about on that ship show on Thursday, which I believe we're having. If I had to guess, I think they're going to focus more on the Storm and the Suylen. I don't think they'll go much further than that because I don't think they want to give away all their cards just yet. But that being said, VM, I really appreciate you coming on with me tonight, talking ships. Always great to talk ships with you because I know you get in there and inspect the models as hardcore as I do. And everyone who in chat who enjoys StarJump Fleet Viewer, please give VM and StarJump Starlet a big old giant double salute. They really do a lot to make it possible. Get these, not only to get these new ships in, but get them in a quick turnaround time, and during the events and stuff like that. It's a lot of work. It's challenging. Even things like the Suylen with its landed state, you got to remember that these ships aren't just like naturally rigged up. They, like for us, like we don't press a button and then we go, oh, there's the landed state. We have to get in there. We have to start fiddling and tinkering around and figuring things out. And it is pretty complicated. So again, big shout out to VM and Starlet, who I know was in chat earlier, for doing that. And then obviously on the concept ship side of things, I try to get those out as quick as possible. I can go ahead and tell you right now, the RSI Miner, it's going to a little bit come down to what state the website based hollow model is out or is at what the concept art they provide looks like, how much I'm able to glean from that. Remember, with the Zeus, they released a top down brochure that I was able to do texture 3D camera projection of that texture onto the model itself, which saved a lot of time. Don't know if I'll be able to do that with their miner. I don't, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I won't because it's too greebled out. It's going to be difficult to projection map on it. So I imagine that ship's going to take some work, but we will make a huge effort to get Fleet Viewer updated as quickly as possible when the ships go for sale, because that's generally when we wait. I will also, at some point during IAE, for everyone that knows, I've done poster giveaways on various streams and stuff, big Fleet Viewer posters. I'm working on a very special IAE Fleet Viewer poster, though, that's really cool. And I'm going to only do one of them. It's going to be a one off. And I will give it away on the last show of our IAE coverage, probably sometime at the end of IAE. Make sure to give that away. So if you're interested in that, just stick with us throughout IAE for additional coverage. Again, remember, we do not stream every day. We do not cover things every day. It's more just as news happens and as we want to talk about it. But if you are following us on our Twitter, which is StarJump.org on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it, or over on YouTube, StarJump, follow those, get on our Discord, join our Discord, make sure to accept those rules. I always post when I'm going to discuss something, and kind of give a little bit of a heads up notice on about a stream or a video or something like that. VM, anything you want to add before we kill out for the evening?
No, thank you for having me. This has
Yeah,
been an awesome conversation, and I look forward to seeing all of you. We'll talk more once
yeah.
IA and these ships are officially out.
More stuff coming. Actually, and then let me look. Let's see here. Stand by. Stand by. Okay. Ender, are you in chat? Do you have a raid initiated for us on Twitch? Okay, Ender, send us over. Ping me and DM if you would, but go ahead and initiate the raid. Let's send us out. Let's share the StarJump love with whoever we're raiding. Make sure to show them some love. Got 90 or so of you over on Twitch, which is amazing. Please go give them a little. Oh, we're raiding one of my favorites, Yo Meg. Great member of the Soul Citizens and just a great all-round Star Citizen community member. She represented us quite well over at Citizen Con, so big thanks to her. Always love you, Yo Meg. We're going to be sending you over there. Have a great night. Do I need to initiate this? Let's see how terrible I am, or just do we raid automatically? Okay, there we go. All right, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Take it easy. Have a great night. Thank you for hanging out with us.